how do you keep yourself grounded like when doing the work? Because I noticed for me like a recent experience, something happened and I was feeling like, oh, I got this, and like everything that was coming at me, I was like almost not even paying too much attention and being like closed, like not open to like see other things or like hear other things because I didn't want to like lose my peace in a way. So how do you stay grounded, like be aware of everything that's going on, but also not in a way like self-sufficient that you think that you don't need anything else? I guess that would
Hmm.
be.
That's a great question. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have an immediate answer, but let's think about it together a little bit. And the first thing that comes to mind is this idea that openness is really valuable. In fact, that's where the work tends to point us. Like, okay, if you're stressed, usually there's something closed. There's something like I'm attached to something, or I'm just closed, and I only see one way, and it's blocked, and I'm having a problem there. So the work says, okay, question that, question your thinking there, and you start to see another way. Oh, great, there's another way. There's a back door as well as a front door. So if the front door is blocked, I can go out of the back door, no problem. So that's the beginning of some openness, and that feels great. Like you said, it feels there's more peace now because I can move. I have the freedom. I can see it in a different way, and that's really great. But you're bringing up a really interesting point. What happens if you start to get too attached to, the back door is the only way. This is the best way, and I don't want to ever use the front door again. and and so I get like turned around, but then I'm stuck on the turnaround, and I can get like, yeah, I don't know if that's exactly what you're saying here, but you can get caught in seeing something in a new way, and that's the only way. And you see this pop up in so many different ways in life. So it was so peaceful to find that new way that I don't want to let go of that peace, right? It was so like, oh, finally, I found there was another way to look at it. I don't want to get rid of that peace.
Mm.
So that is attachment. That is a form of being closed in a way. Even though it's more open than it was when I was really closed, I went from really closed to more open. But if I'm attached to that more openness, I'm actually closed in a weird way. So anytime I notice attachment to something, then there's a thought there that I'm believing. And I think the thought you said so perfectly is, I don't want to lose my peace. So
Mm.
then I would just take that to the next, I would question that thought. I don't want to lose my peace. And and then see what you find on the other side of that one. So it's like, how open can you be? Are you open just to getting out of stress? Or are you open to even experiencing some more stress in the process of opening even further, right? So you never know what it looks like to be open. And so the work will just lead you. You can trust it. When there's a stress, there's like even though you were feeling peace, you were noticing there was something a little bit closed, right? Like something felt off about that. So that's the clue. If anytime something feels off, then you can apply the work again, and you just can keep reapplying and reapplying. It it reminds me. I've used this analogy recently, and it's something I've always enjoyed. Is the idea of that whitewater rafting? Like you do the balance and you're like, oh, great. I was tipping to this side, so I pushed on this side and it brought me to balance. But if I think that's the only way, just push to the left, and then everything will be great, then I'm going to be in trouble because I'm going the other side and I'm going to fall in on that side. So I have to change and now push to the right and then again change. So it's constantly balancing from one side to the other side because life is dynamic. It's not just one, you do one piece of work and it's done. You do one piece of work to balance that, and then you find where the imbalance is coming again, and you do it again. And my experience is the more you do this work, the more you start to feel it. You start to feel when you're getting imbalanced, and you start to naturally come back to balance, even without formally going through the 4 questions and the turnarounds. Sometimes I need to, but sometimes it's just like finding, like walking a tightrope. You can just, oh, okay, yep, yep. In the beginning, you're falling off and you're falling off, but in the end, you're able to just do a little bit of small changes, and and then it's not as yeah, it's not as dramatic, the shifts. But you have to always keep doing it. If you just become rigid, that's when the whole thing is just going to fall over. Yeah, you have to be, yeah, feeling if it's getting closed again in some way. So those are my thoughts. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts. I'm open to hear. And Edwin, what's your experience just listening as I was playing around there? What's your experience in terms of your situation? Does that resonate in any way?
It does. Yeah, it's like going from one corner to the other, but not realizing that you're doing it. Like for me, it felt like I'm having a piece that I want to keep, and I don't want to lose that piece. So my attempt of not losing that piece is like, oh, there's an altercation going on over here, so I want to run away because I don't want to get in the middle of that. I don't want to lose my piece. So instead of like jumping in and like using a new way of looking at things, I'm just like avoiding it completely and just running away in a way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So a truly open mind is as peaceful with altercations as it is with nice, quiet surroundings. Like if you really want to push it to the limits and challenge yourself to the ultimate level, then like, can you be peaceful even when somebody is arguing with you, or if there's something you like, there's always something. And the more integrated this becomes, the more easy you do become with everything. And it doesn't, there's a lot of nuance to this, but that is the idea. It's like not enough just to say, okay, I found my turnaround. Now that's my new religion, and I just close down to everything else. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I see hands there. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, thanks. So yesterday or day before, time disappears. Um, I'm always not wanting any kind of confrontation and will try to be the peacekeeper. But we had a very aggressive solar salesperson at our door, and he just simply would not leave. And I don't know what it was, but for that moment, I got so angry that, and I got my husband involved in it as well. And I'm typically the peacekeeper because I will avoid any kind of conflict. But we literally almost lifted him up and dropped him off of our property. we just ganged up on him. Get out of here! Yeah, we'll have you arrested. I mean, and he resisted it, and it was thrilling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was exhausted afterwards, but all I could think of was how unlike me. But apparently that's not unlike me.
Exactly. Like with an open mind, e- everything's on the table. Everything's on the table. And it's like almost scary, how much is possible
Uh,
there. I'm
yeah.
the same way. I do not, I avoid conflict like all my whole life. I've always avoided conflict. But over time doing this work, I've actually found myself putting my foot down or saying, really, no, that is not going to work. I've found myself using this kind of anger voice sometimes when it just like that has to stop or something like that. And that's so unusual for me. But in a weird way, it feels like balance for me because I tend to be more on the let's keep everything peaceful side. So yeah, this is what we mean by open mind. How open can your mind be? Is even negativity okay, right? Is even
Yeah,
anger
yeah.
okay? Like,
And
wow.
right after that, I was going to say I had the balls to do this. Well, yeah, I had the balls to do this. Um, I, I don't like a medication my doctor gave me. And I called and left a message and said, I'm not taking this anymore. Find me another one. I mean, it was almost like, oh, I'm going to use this. And then I just got off the phone with the pharmacist. They found me a new medication that will not have the side effects.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hope I don't go too far in that direction. In any
Right.
case,
So you'll notice this is exactly what we're talking about. So now that starts to feel good. Like, okay, great. I'm finally standing up for myself. I'm actually not afraid to be even very in your face if necessary. But then, like, you'll feel like, okay, if it starts going too far, you'll notice the imbalance. And that's what you
yeah,
can trust. That's what I mean. It's like you'll notice the
okay,
imbalance. Like Edwin was saying, there's something off. I'm not quite open. I'm almost a little too attached to my piece or something. Like, so if you notice I'm getting just a little, maybe it's a little too aggressive here, this doesn't feel
yeah,
right, then you'll notice you can question your thinking, which is whatever the thought is that's making you be aggressive. Like, I have a right to do this, or they should, whatever. And you can find your way back to
and then
balance
it's
again.
just a conversation instead of a confrontation.
Right. So
Yeah,
with practice, it just gets finer and finer and finer. And I think what I've noticed is that my ability to stand up for myself in the beginning is very crude. And then over time, it becomes finer and finer, and I'm able
good.
to stand up for myself in a way that's also not harsh. But I'm not afraid to be harsh if it needs to happen.
Yeah.
And, so it's appropriate. Yeah.
Well, when Edwin was saying being attached to the piece, but my not responding wasn't peaceful for me. I mean, I may have appeared peaceful because I wasn't attacking, but it was not peaceful in my mind
Yeah.
until I said something.
So we're starting to pay attention
Anyway,
to
yeah,
peace on
thanks.
the inside. What's my
Yeah,
peace actually feel like? Not what does it look like? You can be saying crazy things sometimes and feeling really peaceful about it, and that's right for me. And no one else can judge it because for them it looks crazy. But for me, I'm like, this feels right. But I can also be uh, really peaceful on the outside looking, but feeling not right on the inside. So what we're shifting is the attention from outside to inside. And the more I pay attention to what's going on inside, the more I don't worry about what it looked like. I just know I'm listening to myself and acting in a way that feels true and right for me in that moment. And
yeah,
yeah, that's all I
yeah.
can do.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Marika, I knew you had your hand up a while ago. I don't know if you still have the thought, but if you want to, I'm happy to hear.
No, it was just um, an, an an association. Do you say it that way?
Hmm.
I made an association with what Edwin said because it made me think about what in Buddhism they're also very much into observing. Like Katie says, noticing. So whatever it is, it's just about noticing. If it's just noticing, you cannot be attached. It's that's a bit that's what it made me think of.
Yeah, 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 exactly. It's awareness. There's nothing off about awareness. There's nothing off about noticing. There is something off about being attached to it, or that it should be different, or I don't want to lose my peace, or any of those things. There's a stickiness there. and that feels off. It feels a little bit stressful, and if it gets pushed far enough, it can become very stressful. But just awareness itself, or just noticing, as you say, is a very free place to be in. And so, yeah, okay, that's it.
And I also liked what Wendy said about going to the opposite and that aggression. Actually, in that moment, the way you said it, Wendy, was really peaceful. I mean, you were in peace then. So that we have a kind of a certain idea or a definition about what peace is, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, yeah. My turnarounds have consistently pointed me towards standing up for myself, saying no, being direct, being raising my voice. Like that's where my turnarounds point me. It's funny. Someone else, they might point them to tone it down and to be softer, but I already have that. It's like I needed the other skill. So whatever you need to balance yourself, your stress will show you, and the work will point you right where you need to go. That's why it's so specific for each person. That's why I like to say you can't take another person's medicine. You can't take someone else's turnaround and just borrow it and use it for yourself. No, if you have a heart condition, you take the heart medicine. If you have some other condition, you take that medicine, and you don't take the wrong one because it doesn't work so well. So the 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 diagnosis in this work is the feeling of stress. Like, oh, there's a symptom showing up, stress. That tells me something isn't right for me specifically. When I find out what that thought is specifically and then question it and turn it around, it brings me back to balance for me. And that no one else can follow that path because it's specific to me. When I do that, I do find the balance. But then if I keep going, as Edwin started this whole conversation, I may start to notice there's something not feeling right afterwards. And that tells me I've gotten too attached to even my own experience of peace. And then I follow that symptom of stress again, find the thought, and then question it, and find an even bigger peace. So peace just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.